Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Dorielle Inez Larrier, and this is another episode of The Power of Story. You know that I have come to you over the past couple of weeks, chatting with very, very interesting people who I call ordinary people who make interesting decisions that then impact not only themselves, but the community that they serve and the community that they're connected to. And so today, this afternoon, I have the awesome pleasure to interview Adem Bunkeddekko, who is actually running for the seat of congressperson in the 9th Congressional District. So I happen to have met Adem surreptitiously in the last couple of days and weeks, and thought he would be a great additional person to add to the series. So you know exactly what I need for you to do. If you are watching this and you know that there are other people who are interested in this conversation, hit share. So share that. I see 2 people on already. Excellent. 3 of you guys knew I was coming for it. So I need you to share this video, send it to the people that you know should watch it, and those who really, really should watch it. So we're going to chat with Adem for a few moments and check on what he's doing, where he's coming from, and how his story is going to impact not only his community, but other people who have a story to tell. So, welcome, Adem Bunkeddekko.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So, we are talking a little bit about his backstory and why he's even sitting on this couch with me, or why I'm sitting on the couch with him. So we'll start with you and tell us why you are even here.
Yeah, I think, I want to thank you again for taking the time to sit down and chat. I think to where it really begins is often when I have this kind of conversations, it starts with 2 people who often aren't here, my parents. It's hard to imagine that I would have ever gotten this far in life, let alone come onto earth, were it not for them. So my parents are 2 women from Uganda. Dad came here 1980, age 22. He had $50. First place he went to was a detention center. Had enough money, maybe to buy a few meals there, and then he had to find work. So he worked at McDonald's, janitor, security guard, you name it. Did it all for 5 years before saving up enough money to bring my mom here. And my mom actually lived through a civil war, one that my father had fled. And, you know, it was a pretty painful chapter for both of them, in large part because my dad was so far away from the friends and family he had known who were living through a gruesome period through Uganda's history. But my mom viscerally saw it firsthand. And, you know, there are parts of it that my mom only talks about as we've gotten older because it's such a painful chapter. But, you know, what had been a nightmare in Uganda managed to become an American dream for them here when my mom got here and they made a home here in the city. I grew up in a tiny little 1-bedroom apartment, one of 6. So, you know, you gotta, in our family, you gotta talk if you want to eat. You gotta do a lot of things in order to get by. But I think it's through those experiences, it's through that upbringing that, you know, has enabled me to choose a career in public service, one following in the footsteps of my parents who were social workers, who helped the most vulnerable among us in society. And that's what I've done most of my career, try to help people who are similar in my, you know, background, and the fact that they come from modest means, but some folks who are even less off than us. So that, to me, I think, in a sort of quick synopsis, is how I've gotten to this point and why I've chosen the path that I have.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned that your family is from Uganda, born and raised. Now, were you born in Uganda as well?
No, I was not. I have siblings who were, but I was born here. So I was born at Elmhurst Hospital in Queens.
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay. So given that your family has gone through a tumultuous past before even, you know, let's say bringing you into the world,
Yeah.
how does their story
Yeah.
impact you so that you would help others make their story easier?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's funny that you mentioned tumultuous, because, although the context in which they were operating was tumultuous, the fact that they had lived through a war, they had come through a pretty trying period when they first got here. They themselves were pretty anchored. They were stable. It wasn't tumultuous at all. I grew up poor, but I had a pretty relatively happy childhood. The electricity wasn't on sometimes when I got back home, or I had to help some of my uncles and aunts, with daily English lessons as they applied for jobs. But I wouldn't say it was tumultuous. I would actually say I was quite fortunate in many respects, given to a lot of the folks that I grew up with who had actually tumultuous periods. I mean, either family trauma of some sort, whether it was a parent who had been incarcerated, or a sibling who had been shot, arrested. I was very, very blessed in life that that didn't occur. It was just, for the most part, we just didn't have the financial wherewithal. But, for me, as a child, growing up, thinking about ways in which I wanted to give back, I wanted to be a physician when I was a kid.
How did you do in science?
I did okay till I got to physics, and then that's
where we share the same story.
That's where
that did not go well.
I
love you, Erasmus Hall, but I'm sorry, we just didn't do well.
It just hit the rails at that point. But at the same time, I was fortunate in the fact that it was during that period I was also got a scholarship to go to boarding school, and the subjects that I started to excel at, English, history, the humanities, economics, they were coming. I was doing well in them as I was sort of coming of age too, which was, what are you going to do with this life of yours, right? I think everyone has that sort of moment where they say, and I think it's around adolescence, for some it may come later, but for me it came around 15 and saying, like, what are you going to do with life? And I had two stellar examples. My parents, they weren't educated in the classic sense, but they were pretty sharp people, pretty hardworking, and they had found a way to make a difference in the lives of the most vulnerable among us in our community.
So you spoke of how your parents being in the social work, thinking, lifestyle, and them going through the separation, them going through a war, your father being here trying to establish himself, while your mother is trying to hold it down and then get here and all that. How does that impact you being able to pay attention to other people's stories and then unite with them? Because it seems like that's what drove you here, or am I being presumptuous?
I think it was, to a large extent, that was in fact the case. Their experience helped shape my own experience, and that my own experience then in turn probably led me down this path. But I think it's sort of a nexus of values in large part. We were always taught, and it's funny, they never said it out loud. It was always through examples that you got to give back. It can't simply be about yourself. You've got to do more than simply putting food on your table. You got to make sure that those around you, the community that you are a part of, also thrives. Because it's hard for you to succeed if you don't. If people around you aren't succeeding, it's hard for you to. So I think, yes, in a large part it was, but I also thought it was the context. I came from a very modest place, and I was born and raised in the inner city here. And for me, I was fortunate that I had education that sort of took me up the ladder. But I never forgot where I had started on that ladder, and there's a deep moral obligation, particularly given that I was raised in the faith, and you got to be able to not only do that but give back. So
So some people that can align or identify with some of the past that you have lived through.
Yeah.
Maybe they can just like feed the homeless. Maybe they can, help with voter registration. Maybe they can join a civic club. But you're taking this to an entirely different level.
Yeah.
And you, I think, were you a part of like the 30 under 30?
No.
Okay.
Just lost all my hair before 30.
No, not a problem. That's because you studied a lot.
Yeah,
right?
that's what they say. Right? Yeah.
So why take this step? Why take this step to step out or step into the ring? To say I'm going to not just work in public service or and so how that connects to the community service or the social engagement.
Yeah.
So how does that connect? Like, why take this step?
Yeah, so I think that question probably ties to your previous question, and I think it's empathy, right? So part of my own experience, part of my own story, I think the common thread in all of it is empathy. And we are lacking empathy in society now more than ever. It seems to be the case that those who hold public trust, public office, have forgotten about the communities that they serve. And I salute anyone who goes into public life. This is not easy. You're right. There are many ways to serve in public service, and you don't have to run for elective office. But I do think there has been a dearth of leadership in terms of moving the ball forward on a lot of key issues that are pretty salient in our community. Take, for instance, housing. We got communities, Crown Heights, Flatbush, East Flatbush, Brownsville, that are gentrifying at a rate that is quite frightening for a lot of folks who've been here long term. Yeah, and I've been someone born and raised in the city. It's not only socially, morally a failing on our part, but politically and economically too. We're, in effect, going to have a borough that does not have any working class communities at the rate at which we're going. And my deep, deep concern is that may also include us not having a large community of color. It becomes quite homogenous in many ways, socially, racially, classes. So, to me, the point of getting into politics is not simply to get into it for its sake, but to actually move the ball forward, to get things done. And that hasn't occurred under the 12 years that Ms. Clark has been in office.
So you spoke of housing, you spoke of, let's say, jobs. Mm-hmm. What are some next steps that could be taken or that you could see implementing, imparting, bringing voice to?
Yeah.
How are you going to help the people who are currently living that story get to that next step? Yeah,
I think there are a couple of pillars. So really the platform that I've run on the issues that I think are pretty important. First is housing. So the first thing I'd like to do on the federal level is create a Mitchell-Lama program that we have similar here in the state. Mm-hmm. So for those who are watching that don't know Mitchell-Lama, Mitchell-Lama is a program that was started in the 50s, I believe, here in New York State, that allowed for low and moderate income folks not only the opportunity to rent, but to own. That, I think, was a much more stable anchor, giving folks ownership in the communities that they lived in, and communities that helped sweep up, they kept neat and tidy. We need to do that on the federal level, because although Brooklyn is going through an enormous housing crunch, we're not alone. You go to Seattle, you go to LA, you go to Los Angeles, San Francisco, you go to any major city in this country, and there is an enormous housing crunch, and the pressure is being put on working class communities, in particular working class communities of color. So I think if we can create a program like that on the federal level, it'll go a long way to alleviating the burden that we see here in Brooklyn. The second part is criminal justice reform. I think for me, as someone who grew up, one person of color in this city, from the hood, or the inner city, as people like it, I call it the hood, as a black male, I knew a number of my friends who were locked up at 19, 20 for marijuana possession. And that's a felony, right? That means, A, you're blocked out of getting housing, getting a job, doing the basics in society. Now, is it fair that you should pay basically a life sentence for an offense that the white kids that I went to school with at Harvard or Harvard or boarding school, they would do it freely and have no punishment at all? I don't think that squares with how we should be morally as a people, socially as a people. But it also doesn't make economic sense. We're blocking out a large swath of society from participating and contributing to the economy at large. So I think that's another pillar. The other one is immigration, providing a pathway for folks to be able to stay in this country. My parents are war refugees. They built an enormous life for themselves here. I think everyone who's willing to risk everything to come here should actually have the chance to live out that opportunity. I mean, we got a large number of folks from the West Indies, from Sub-Saharan Africa, from Eastern Europe, and nobody here, if you told them that, you know, they want to come here and be lazy, and all the stereotypes that you hear, no, they actually want to work hard and provide for their families and move up in the economic chain. So if we can attack those three pieces on the legislative front, we can make an enormous difference here in Central Brooklyn.
So for those of you who are just popping on, this is Doriel, and I'm speaking to Adem Bunkeddekko, who is running for the seat of the 9th Congressional District here in Brooklyn. And most of you who are on, and thank you very much for sharing. I see a number of you, but because I'm so far away, I can't wave at you. But you know I'm saying hello. So I'm fully engaged in this conversation. Thank you for sharing, because I see some folks who share. Hello, I know that you just, thank you. I'm glad that you just waved at me, and I'm waving back. So I really want you to pop on if you can and ask a question. So just think of this as like the Essence Live, and you can ask a question. There's actually someone sitting in the back who will read your questions. Thank you. I see you clapped for me. Thank you, Natasha. So I really wanted this just for the last like 5-7 minutes or so to be an opportunity if anybody did have any questions to ask of Adem, that you can ask them and we can have them read out loud and we can engage. So while anybody is thinking or sharing what have you, I have one more question, and that was, so how, and you kind of touched on this, but it's how do people's stories move government to serve people, right? And so how, and this is what you sort of participated in on very small levels, and now you're sort of stepping it up. And so how can people galvanize their shared stories as interest groups? So before you answer that, I know that you did some work with housing, or I know you did some work with job creation. And so can you give like regular folks like me, or regular folks like my viewers, a reminder of how they can take that 1, 2, 5, 10 voices and put them together? And so like what's that local level, small district? And then, but also, and it's past just like the signing of a petition, because sometimes people will say, oh, I gotta sign a petition, I'm about to go to a rally. There's other things, especially with social media, that can be done. What can you sort of say to them about how to take their stories and put them together so now we can move an agenda?
Yeah, I think, so this gets to like a theory of change.
Right, because, and I'm saying it because the Mitchell-Lama, which is here in New York, are we really going to be able to go to Texas with that? Like, are we really going to be able to go to California with that?
And I think part of it is, one, for us to find common ground, right? So maybe not rural Texas, right? Or maybe not rural California. But if you go to San Francisco, right? Maybe this isn't so much an issue in like Houston, but in Austin, we got rising housing costs there. And part of it is So I think my theory of change is born out of my own story. And I think if we're going to move the ball forward, we're going to need folks to talk about how this affects them in a real, visceral way. Because a lot of the time, people aren't generally going to buy into, well, the numbers, the economics. It's usually, I need to see it, I need to feel it, I need to hear you tell me how this affects you. And for me, I often relate about how I got to my own theory of change is I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment.
You lived it.
Yeah, I lived it.
Every morning.
Every morning. Every morning.
8 people in the bathroom.
Yeah, not even. Yeah.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Sometimes you didn't even get to go to the bathroom. You just had to brush your teeth at school.
You said, go.
Yeah, just run out and that's it. But
that's a reality for a lot of families right now. Who are like sharing homes.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of families and a lot of families in our community who are sharing homes.
Yeah, but I also think the reality is that that's also a disappearing reality. Is that even what my parents, as modest as that was, that's disappearing, that's vanishing. Because rent has escalated so high, people aren't even being able to find one bedroom to do that, right? They have to go, and I've heard of families coming in together, like multiple, which, makes my 8 of us look kind of like small potatoes. So I think for me, the key thing is to make sure that we are not only highlighting our story, why we believe this is an important social and moral issue, but also tying that to actual framework that can work, right? So part of it is providing the emotional and social and moral component, but also saying, okay, we understand that this is a problem that people feel. How do we create change in a meaningful way? And that's why I believe the Mitchell Lama program, because it's grounded in, 1, we have evidence that it works. 2, it's sound. And 3, we also know from folks who lived it that it does work.
Right, they're still around and they can still give a voice.
Yeah.
So any questions? Not a problem.
Yeah.
So I'll sort of make that the last question because that sounds like it would be the next common or the next practical step, right? It would be taking something that you know has already worked. So Mitchell Lama, for example, we still have families who still live in the community who are benefits of Mitchell Lama. They can tell their story and keep telling their story so that the people who are sitting in the seats who are sitting in the seats can hear these people who are not just parents but grandparents right now, right? And that was in the 50s. So they're grandparents or maybe even great-grandparents. They can pass on that story. Preferably they still hold on to their homes, let their grandchildren take those homes and then say, we need more of this. So we need to keep pressing that button to say, if you support this, then you can have my vote. But you gotta keep telling that story.
But what I also want to highlight to the viewers is that telling the story is just the first part of the change equation, right? So it's not enough to just say the story, but you also have to demand it to be heard and demand that there be change. And that's where the hard part comes in. Because I think for a lot of in our community, I think it's fairly relatively easy to tell our story. It's the other pieces that need to get done in order to move the ball that I think we really need to focus on, which is not only saying why this is important, but also saying how can we make it better? Because in politics, I think the tension is between the world as it is and the world as it should be. And leadership is driving the ball forward in terms of the world is to the world should be. And how you close that gap is how we bring about change.
So on June 26th, so for those of you who are watching, right, June 26th is a very, very, very important day. Usually we don't come out to vote until the major election, right? But the major election starts with the very first vote, and that is happening June 26th. So we literally have about 4 weeks until that day. So no matter what it is that your concern is, you have to be in the game in order to play it. You have to get out to vote. We've said this time and time again. Here we have Adem Bunkeddekko, who has his position, who has his vision, who has his outline, who has his platform, who has his agenda in order to continue to move that ball in the right direction. And so we want for you to share this video, to share the idea, even though June 26th is also the end of school. And you know I am a classroom teacher, so I'm a part of this. Make sure that you make one step to the classroom, or one step to dropping your children off, one step to graduation, but another step in order to vote and to get other people out to vote. So is there anything else that we should sort of wrap up?
No, I think this was a fun conversation. I hope that I covered all the points that you wanted to.
I did. Okay, so I also want to let folks know that your local politician is really only a phone call away. I literally had someone from his team just sort of knock on my door, and I said, why don't I take the opportunity to have a personal conversation? And like 3 weeks later, look at what happened. So don't be afraid or nervous or think that your local or your elected official or your politician is not someone that you can't just chat with or say, hey, I really have like a deep concern. Can you at least inform me, educate me, let me know what I can do? Because when they need you to need them, right? So this is the power of story. This is Doriel and as Larrier. Thank you so much for joining. You can make sure that you continue to share this video with those who are probably on their way home. But this is Adem Bunkeddekko, and I'll see you all on the next go round. Have a good evening.